And this is just solving the challenge of the day.
Yes.
And this is one part of it. But, I'm an ag person. And so, it's I don't see the need for that competition between agriculture and energy.
A production of Flint Energies, your local touch-tone energy cooperative. Front Porch Chats brings you along while we discuss interesting events, people in history, programs, and hidden gems located in Central and Southwest Georgia. Grab a glass of iced tea while we chat for a spell.
I'm your host, Natalie Bradley, and today I'm here with a special guest, Jim Malooley from Silicon Ranch, and we are going to learn what solar panels and shepherding have in common. It's going to be a fun conversation, so thank you, Jim, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Natalie.
So why don't you tell us what your job title is, because it's a brand new term to me, and I'm sure everybody that's listening, and then tell us, how did you get to this place today?
So my title is Director of Agrivoltaics Operations at Silicon Ranch, and specifically I work in the regenerative energy department. Agrivoltaics is a new term. It's a new career opportunity. It's a new job because it combines agriculture and photovoltaics, the solar panels that generate electricity.
Okay, yeah, very fancy word. Okay.
And so you can also just call me a shepherd, but we focus our production co-located with renewable energy products.
Okay. That's awesome. So how in the world did shepherding and solar panels even come together and become a thing?
Well, so the conversation about land use and solar power plants had a lot of components that sheep could help create opportunities for more food security, in addition to the energy security provided, more rural jobs and careers, and more ways to the support industries that take care of agriculture.
Yeah.
And having those in the communities that our power plants are located in. But the biggest driver was the need to maintain the vegetation on these sites. We're in Georgia, and how the forage grows, and it turns into a jungle if we don't mow
real quick.
Yes. So sheep, because of their size and their grazing behavior, which is important to note because goats are different and not the solution.
Right.
It married well with the way that power plants were being constructed.
Okay.
I'm not going to get off on the weeds on cattle tracker, but there's also excitement about opportunities to construct power plants a little bit differently.
Okay.
We're trying to lead the charge there also, to where maybe cattle can be incorporated on these sites also.
Okay.
Cattle and sheep and electricity. Who's to say you can't run poultry behind them too?
Right.
And really start to generate a stack of products that come off of this land, electricity only being one of them, the rest being more tailored to our food system.
Yeah, so a lot of the, I guess we could say, controversy around solar going into a lot of the land. People get upset because it's taking away from agriculture, but this is doing the opposite. It's marrying both, right?
It really is. So the sheep industry, and when we say sheep, people think, well, I'm not going to eat a sheep. But then I say lamb, and that's the product when we see it on the grocery store shelf. Yeah. Lamb chop, a gyro.
Yes.
So
favorites, yes.
We do have exposure to it, but we import close to 80% of that meat from halfway around the world.
Yeah.
And our industry's been in decline in this country since the end of World War II. That pendulum is swinging the other direction now. And I didn't think I never could have seen this coming in my lifetime. My farm was like everybody else's farm, where other shepherds, livestock producers, we're facing the same struggles. Access to land is a significant one. And this is the opportunity for folks to get into agriculture, have access to land, have a career in ag where they didn't necessarily inherit a farm,
Yeah.
the barriers to entry are insurmountable for a first generation young farmer.
I can only imagine.
And with this, they can earn a solid salary. We can have advancement. We can have conversations that we never had in ag. In my experience, we didn't talk about 401ks and PTO.
Right.
And now that's something that the young folks in this country that are interested in agriculture they don't have to give those things up to pursue their dreams.
Yeah.
And keeping these jobs, creating opportunities in rural communities is also it's an important value to those of us that live the country life.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like in the past we had to move to town to
Right.
have a real shot at a career that we were chasing maybe. And if we can bring those back, the benefits to the community just keep compounding. The veterinary services, the agricultural equipment related to animal handling, the feed mill down the road,
Mm-hmm.
The hay producer on the other side of the road. All of these other businesses benefit if we can just get a foothold. And if sheep is one way to begin this process, by no means is anybody making the argument that it's the end of the process.
Right.
But we're starting to get the ball rolling.
That's really cool. So, how in the world? You said that the lamb industry and maybe shepherding as a whole started declining after World War II in this country. So, how in the world did you get into this?
So, I've had an interest in ag my whole life, but I'm a city boy.
Yeah.
Grew up in Indianapolis. Mom was a teacher. Dad was a dentist. Luckily, my wife had a similar dream. And we didn't think that we would be able to make it on the kind of land that we would be able to get access to. And we were determined to find a way to do it.
Okay.
And so we started learning about different ag enterprises. I didn't go out and chase sheep. I just knew I wanted to work with livestock.
Okay.
And I'm passionate about the outdoors and the environment. And I wanted to do it in a way that yielded benefits to the land instead of mining the land for as much as I can take from it.
Gotcha.
And I started learning about practices. Now the term is regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
But we see farmers planting cover crops and paying attention, having living roots in the soil year round. And these things were all starting to happen. But the financial analysis, I was an engineer after school. It led me to sheep being the only thing that could get me into farming.
Wow.
And that's how I got into it.
That's just wild. I feel like most solar farms that you hear about, it really is just solar. And then this project in particular that's in our service area is Houston Solar. So you can see parts of it off of I-75, just south of Perry. So I've been there in person a couple times now, actually. And it's
Great.
Just so neat. Like, to see it up close and personal and to see all the sheep running around. I haven't been there since y'all finished like the giant lambing barn. I think that maybe there was another one initially, or maybe y'all built onto it. I can't remember. But it was just a really neat concept. So can we talk a little bit about like the lambing barn aspect of that and what does that mean? And then we'll talk about maybe the type of sheep as well. Because people don't, like you said, like people don't think about sheep in the Southeast in the same, context.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And Houston is very unique. Most of our solar farms, we run sheep out in the open year round. We have resident flocks that they do stay there year round. We don't bring them in for the grazing season and then take them somewhere else. But there weren't enough southern sheep. And in order to have a very effective breeding program, we needed to collect some data on how these sheep, what their wellness and health is like in the heat and the humidity, and most importantly, the challenge of parasites.
Yes.
And so our sheep are housed as little of the year as possible. We bring them in for lambs to be born.
Okay.
We can keep mamas with their babies. They tend to have 2 or 3 lambs for a couple of days in, a maternity suite, if you will. And then we can have a record of whose mom was whose dad was whose, and then those animals can go back out.
Okay.
And they can come back in the barn maybe every 30 or 45 days and just run through the same way that our cattle producers run their herds through for a
Okay.
health check. We can do a health and wellness check, and we can collect some records, and we can start to understand what common themes there are that can be successful in sheep in the South.
So
Does
you
that answer
basically-
the question?
Yeah. So like you've got a breed that you don't have to worry about the parasites maybe as much, maybe not 100%.
Right.
I mean, they're animals.
Yeah.
I mean, just like us. I mean, we can get parasites too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's like I know a lot of your listeners have some cattle experience,
Yeah.
but 30 years ago, we didn't see a lot of red Angus. Angus is still the leading beef supply breed for the beef supply, but it was all black Angus. And then some folks started saying these red ones might be a little more tolerant to the heat.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to start the conversation on Angus debate. Don't get me wrong. But there's similar things in sheep.
Okay.
This sheep looks a little different. So the biggest thing on ours is their hair sheep.
Okay.
We all think about wool, the shirt
Right.
I have on today. Our sheep don't produce the fiber that this is.
Okay.
They shed naturally in the spring, and then they grow a hair fleece in the winter to keep them warm.
Mm-hmm.
But not having that wool, that's a significant adaptation to the heat and the humidity.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
then to build on that and talk about the parasite resistance at just the highest level, sheep from different parts of the world, think the islands, a tropical environment that's hot and humid. There's some sheep running around out there. There's sheep, in South America, Central America. So those sheep have spent generations down there and developed some type of adaptation.
Yeah.
That environment is prime time for the parasites. And so the work has already been done by Mother Nature. We're just beginning to really understand it and embrace it in this country.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So, and I'm thinking sheep, not goats, because goats eat everything. So
you're exactly right.
So you got the problem of they're going to eat like the wires too.
They're going to chew on some wires, and they like to climb.
Right. On top, like goat yoga that you see. And,
and I love goats. Don't get me wrong, but they are not the perfect answer with electrical wires.
Yeah.
everywhere.
Okay. I just figured we might want to circle back in case somebody was like, "But wait, why not goats?"
Sure.
Because they do like to eat, but they eat too much. So perfect. Okay. This is really cool to think about it. All right. So Matt Denton, everybody that's following along our podcast a few months ago, if you listened to the interview I did with Matt, it aired in February on how he works with our agriculture. Obviously, he works hands-on with Silicon Ranch at the Houston Solar location. And so he said, you have to ask a couple of these questions. So he's obsessed with your dog, Nigel. So we're going to take like a little bit of a sidebar on this. So talk to us about Nigel and what makes him so special.
Well, Mr. Denton is too kind, and it's not just Nigel. It's that he's a herding dog. And I want to emphasize that a lot of our shepherds have dogs, and that's a herding dog. But I'm just going to get back into the career of shepherding and how that really declined as it's coming back. A core component of shepherding, a shepherd isn't as successful if they don't have a good set of dogs. You need guardians to protect the sheep from predators. They're a prey animal. And you need herders, especially in a solar field, because they don't have to duck under panels the way that we do. If you want to move the sheep, the dogs are able to work with the sheep, and it goes back to that predator prey. a herding dog is seen by the flock as a predator. And
Okay.
so their response to its presence and how it moves is the same as if a coyote or a wolf
Oh.
were around them. And the sheep flock view the guardian dogs as members of the flock.
Oh, wow.
And you said you like science fun facts. Here's a
Yes.
fun fact. Sheep have the ability to remember thousands and thousands of faces.
What?
And so they know the face of other sheep in the flock. They know the face of dogs. And so we can
That
take
is cool.
two big white Pyrenees dogs
Yeah.
and one be in the flock and then be familiar with it and put another one out that we think looks just like it, and those sheep move away. So
That is
that's
the
just a
cutest thing I've heard all day.
just a random sidebar.
I love random facts. It's wild.
That's where the dogs come into play. And so just it's that close relationship is what Matt's talking about, I think.
Okay.
And it's something that all of our shepherds aspire to. If they're in this job, they're working up to the responsibility of having a dog as their right hand.
Yeah.
Or dogs.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's another neat skill that accompanies this. And I keep saying shepherd, agrivoltaic technician. That's a mouthful, and people are unfamiliar. But as we talk about these new skill sets, we're learning to observe the sheep.
Yeah.
We're learning to understand what their health status is based on their behaviors, and we really emphasize that sheep are not miniature cattle.
Yeah.
And they behave differently and communicate to us differently what their well-being is.
That's really neat. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, I say this a lot. Maybe I'm a weirdo, but I just think we live in such a neat time. Like, I feel like this age that we live in gets a lot of criticism for a variety of reasons, but I'm fascinated with all of these like archaic, old school, primitive, all those things, arts and ways of life, and all of these. I mean, you're seeing it with the art industry, with agriculture, probably with everything, furniture making. I mean, you name it. But I feel like it's with a twist because of the technology that we have now. And this is such a really awesome example, I feel like, of something that, I mean, shepherding's been around, I guess, since the beginning of time, really. I mean, since we started, like, not just wandering around and, like just gathering berries and whatever, starting to try and take our meat with us, or I don't know. I wasn't trained in that area, so I'm probably not saying it right, but I just think that that's neat. I mean, you read about it, the Bible. I mean, shepherds throughout the Bible. I mean, it's been around for a hot minute, but
Yes, ma'am.
don't hear about it anymore. So I just think that it's really neat that it's making a comeback. And I just think it's really cool that, people that are in the ag industry can pursue something in a different way. And like the vet students can learn a different form of large animal treatment and hands-on experience with that. I just think that is really, really neat.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right. That revival of an
Yeah.
appreciation for craftsmanship and
Of all
workmanship.
types.
Yes, of all types.
Yeah.
It's neat to see it in this day and age. It took solar energy for this industry to kind of get the pendulum going the other way.
Yeah.
But I also share your admiration for things of the past and
Yeah.
skills of the past that took a lot of effort to develop
Yeah.
and to get really good at, and then to be able to teach those to others and have those apprenticeships and have those paths in life where people can really show up and do what they're passionate about every day.
Yeah, I just find that very interesting. And before we started recording, I think we were talking about how, a lot of the knowledge is passed from shepherd to shepherd. And, a lot of apprenticeships, I feel like that's also making a comeback, because that used to be the way that pretty much everybody learned everything. And then that went away and it became like a traditional like university or tech path. But we're seeing all these certification programs and pathways. And, a lot of universities are talking about basically, it sounds like mimicking that, because it's not working in a lot of ways. So I just think that that's really neat. It's kind of like, wives' tales and, all these things that, we joke around about, oh, that's a wives' tale, that's not whatever. But a lot of it is true, or it's got truth in it. And, people sharing home remedies and things like that. I mean, it's all kind of, synonymous. I mean, they all have their foundings, and we learn so much more from each other than while we're doing it, as opposed to just a textbook, I feel like.
Yeah, and before we part, I want to say that you just mentioned that we learn from each other and from doing, and that we don't have to pick an energy source
Yeah.
or have that debate. We can say there's a host of energy sources, and we need a lot of energy in this day and age, and in doing that, and in it's creating this opportunity for us to bring everybody back together, because where our nation has always demonstrated resilience is that we could bring the best minds and experiences together, and we could solve whatever the challenge of the day is.
Yeah.
And this is just solving the challenge of the day.
Yes.
And this is one part of it. But I'm an ag person, and so it's I don't see the need for that competition between agriculture and energy.
I agree. I really love that, and I love the relationship that's coming out of it. And doing this podcast, I think the most fun part is getting to meet interesting people like you and finding out about careers, businesses, opportunities, and events that I didn't even know existed. And it's just very fascinating. And obviously, like, I'd been out there, so I knew it existed, but I didn't understand like the behind the scenes, what it takes to get to this point. So I appreciate you sharing just a glimpse of your expertise. I know that there's so much more going into it. And House and Solar is just one part of Silicon Ranch. I mean, like, this is happening all over, right?
Oh, yes.
I want to make sure we say that too.
Yes, let's emphasize, Houston is a really special project because of the ability to do the breeding that we're doing there.
Okay.
But those sheep are fanning out across the country at a huge scale. I had a call from a producer in Alabama yesterday, as an example, who I've known for more than a decade, asking if he can, if there's rams available for us to trade some genetics. That farmer to farmer relationship still exists, even though I'm at Silicon Ranch. and we're seeing the benefits of that fan out beyond the fences around solar farms. It's just giving farmers another enterprise they can add to their farm if they want to, if they think it's a good match for them.
That's fantastic. And I'm looking forward to having more and more lamb stateside so that the prices are better and better, because it's fabulous. My granddaddy used to get so mad at me because he was a cattle farmer, and I would be like, Granddaddy, I like lamb so much better. And he was like, that is a sin. And he's a Black Angus, farmer, and there's nothing better in his mind. But there's nothing like
I like it all.
Chopped. I don't know. I just like it so much. But I'm hoping that we can have more and more of that available right here. And I'm really excited to see what you guys do. So we'll be
Thank you again.
Following you guys. Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, we need your help. Please give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really does help us get this information out to more people about what's going on in Central and Southwest Georgia. Also, share this podcast on social media with your friends and family, because it helps get more eyes and ears on what we have going on in our fabulous communities. Thank you.